Good morning. We hope you're keeping well. 083 333 975. Our text and WhatsApp number. Audrey is awaiting your calls on 051 846 123. Big shout out still to our SOS Suicider Cycle challenge that's taking place, the 20k challenge. Make sure, please, if you have any chance at all, give a few bob towards that. A very, very worthy cause. If you want to text in the word hero as well, with the name of the person that you want to nominate for your Waterford Greatest Sporting Heroes in conjunction with Flahavans, please do. And you can go on the website to have a look at the full list. We're going to be talking to Gary Code later on about Paddy Code. Alan Reynolds is coming in to talk to us as well. We're talking to John Cummins about Fine Gael and many other matters besides. We're going to go straight to Dungarvan first to talk to Helena Goff, owner of the local bar. Good morning, Helena.
Hi, Damien. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. Helena, people may be only allowed to spend 90 minutes in restaurants and pubs that serve food when they reopen at the end of the month. These details have only come out in the last 12 hours, so they're still a bit sketchy and we don't have full information about it. What's your initial thoughts on what has been revealed?
Well, Damien, to be honest with you, like the €9, the €9 thing isn't a problem because, like we started takeaway there 5 weeks ago, and you know the lowest thing is €10 on the takeaway. So my menu would be from like 10 upwards, you know, with dinners and burgers and stuff. So like that wouldn't really be an issue for most pubs that are serving food because you'll have sides of chips, you'll have side salads. You know, even if you're just getting a toasted special, you know, I would think that on average most of when people are spending money in a pub, it's nearly €10-12 that they would be spending, you know, during the day. And then in the night time, obviously, pubs that are serving food in the night, which we'll be doing ourselves, it'll be a more exclusive menu, you know, like, you know, the prices of more dinners. So, like, there won't be an issue with that, Damien, really. OK, well, just on that, we don't know yet. Will a person have to have a meal? The implication seems to be that they will have to have a meal. I think so, because, like, really, I was kind of hoping that, you know, with the coronavirus, that, you know, that basically that we've kind of suppressed it now at this stage. I was hoping that maybe they might have made the announcement that all pubs could open on the 29th of June because, you know, it's kind of like, you know, with the way they brought the phases forward, I was hoping. But I think now with this limit of €9 for a meal, I think anyone that wants to have a drink will have to have something to eat. Like, it's only for 3 weeks, though. Do you know what I mean? So, like, it's basically like if you do want to enjoy a pint, and I know people are missing the pubs or whatever, sure, why not make it your tea with your family or whatever and come down and, you know, just it's only for 3 weeks, and then the pubs will be open 3 weeks after that, so there won't be an issue with that after that, you know. That is an important point, yeah. It is a temporary step in terms of the phasing as things go. It's still... The thing that really gets me, well, firstly on the €9, people might be wondering where the €9 comes from. I believe it's a rounding up or a basic same comparison with 1964, I think, with the Intoxicating Liquor Act, that a substantial meal at that stage was considered to be costing 5 shillings or something along that line. So that's where that's coming from if people are wondering about it. The big thing to me is this idea of reducing the 2 metre social distancing rule to 1 metre. That basically is changing the entire parameters for all the health guidelines we've heard so far. And you can imagine parents listening to this morning are wondering about why are the children not going back to school at the minute. And even if they were to go for 90 minutes, then take a break and then go again for another half an hour or whatever, like it's changed the entire complexity or the simplicity of the message that 2 metres is 2 metres. What do you think about that? Yeah, I know, but you see, I just think with this coronavirus, it's changing on a daily basis. Do you know what I mean? And I suppose they don't really know what's working and what's not working, but I do hope that it will go from 2 metres to 1 metre by the time the hospitality industry opens, because you know yourself, Damien, like, you know what my pub is like, and it's narrow and whatever. It'll cause massive problems for everybody. Whether you have a big pub or a small pub, it's going to cause, you know. So, like, I do think, in fairness to the government and all the health, it is changing day by day. They're doing their best, and, like, we are in a right spot now, I think. Like, you know, we've only, 18 cases again yesterday. So, like, I suppose they're acting on the facts, and I do think like they might put it back from 2 to 1. They'll have to do that for the hospitality and for the schools and the children going back to school, because we just need to go back to some kind of a norm. But as regards to pubs, I think it's only a temporary measure.
Yeah.
And like, to be honest, everybody's very enthusiastic. I have people texting me now, hold a table for me on the 29th, we're going to come in for a bite to eat. So like, it is only going to be for 3 weeks, and then the other pubs. As I said, I was kind of disappointed that I thought it would take pressure off if all the pubs would be allowed open so that everybody could ease their way back. But look, you'd never know what that could happen to in the next week, you know?
Yeah, we've had a text in.
Optimistic about it.
If anybody wants to text, please do. A text in. The whole thing about minimum spend and having a meal is absolutely ridiculous. So if you want a pint, it's not safe. But if you spend more money, it is safe. It's a bloody joke. The whole legislation on safe distancing has been made a mockery of. And that's my point exactly, that there is this battle, obviously, between the economics and the health matters, and the government have said quite consistently they will take the health advice and they ultimately will make the decision based on that advice, but they have to take into account other considerations. And the opinion polls would show that the vast majority of people think the government has done a very, very good job on this. It is a difficult one, and it was always going to be difficult as things started reopening. How fast do we do it? What procedures we put in place? But like, it takes the other thing that comes into it, like, who's going to police these guidelines for 3 years, for 3 weeks,
exactly.
for the 3 weeks? Like at 11:15 at night, if somebody comes into your pub and says, "Listen, will you give us a pint there?" And like, it's too late to have a meal now, and I've rung you ahead to tell you I'm coming. Like, he could be outside or she could be outside, and just ring in and say I'm coming. So that means they've pre-booked. Are you going to refuse them a pint at 11:15 at night?
Yeah, well, you see, the thing is, Damien, like, there's 3 pubs in Dungarvan that'll be opening under this phase. But, like, we'll actually be closed earlier because, like, my intention is to serve food, last orders at 9 o'clock. So I will be shutting our shop, you know, once. Like, it's just for 3 weeks, and I know, like, it's going to be difficult, and I'll have loads of regulars or whatever, but I think they're going to conform with me and say, okay, we'll come down for a bite to eat, we'll have a few pints. 90 minutes, I think, is perfect, because I know when I go for a meal, you wouldn't spend much longer than an hour and a half in an establishment. You know what I mean? So, like, all our habits are going to have to change for the next 3 weeks. People need to come for their tea, you know, maybe bring the kids and then go home. Like, it's only for 3 weeks is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I think, like, come July, everybody will be open, and you'll never know, things might move a bit faster with regards to everything. And, like, we just have to be positive about it and just embrace it, because we're lucky to be opening on the 29th, and I just can't wait.
All those things, I agree with you 100%. That positivity is there, and that's very, very important. But simple things. Somebody comes in, four lads come in, and they order their €10 meals, and they try to guzzle as many pints as possible within 90 minutes. Can you see that happening?
I don't know though, Damien, because this lockdown, like, anytime I go down to the Garveys for a box of beer for myself, they're all gone. I think people, you know what I mean, people are getting used to having a few drinks at home, so it's not going to be like, oh, we're going on the set and we just guzzle as many. I think people will be happy enough. You know, I actually do now. I do think people will be happy enough to come in, have their glass of wine, 2, 3 glasses of wine with their food, and say, geez, it was great to be in there. Do you know what I mean? And just,
that'll be great for a lot of people. Yeah, it will. But
you know, 21 days is all it is, and really, you know, every area around the country is only going to have their own locals, because we're not, for the first 3 weeks anyway, we're not going to have that, you know, you're not going to have, like, massive amount of fellas coming into town together. You know what I mean? I think people understand this now, and I'm a firm believer, when we open, like, it shouldn't really be my job to be saying you're standing too close. People have gotten this now, and we have to be individually responsible for our own actions as well. You know what I mean?
We do, but then you have the rural problems as well. For example, Seamus O'Donnell, publican in Old Parish, has phoned in to say there's no way small rural pubs like his can open with these rules. You possibly could get taxis bringing, again, I'm just going to say 4 lads in from a rural part. They're going to come into Dungarvan and say, right, we've got 3 pubs open. We're going to have 90 minutes in each pub. We're going to go on a pub crawl, and it'll be grand. We'll have a great night. Yeah,
I don't know though, because like the 3 of us that are opening are going to be doing food, so you're not going to be really kind of like fellas in there. You know what I mean? It's a different vibe for the 3 weeks, you know. And I really do think that I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'll have those problems, but like, I'll be standing out in the square every day, and it'll be like, "Are you coming in?" What would you like to eat? No, it's only for 3 weeks.
I know. Yeah.
To be honest with you, we've been closed so long, and the social aspect of the whole thing around the square, and the square has been done up again now, and it's just, if you came up here on a Saturday night at 9 o'clock, every Saturday night I'm like, oh my God, this is terrible. There's nobody on the square. So like for 21 days, people just come to the moorings, Murray's and myself, and have your bite to eat, have your few drinks, and you can do it twice a week if you want. Everyone has loads of money now. It's COVID. Nobody's been spending any money.
The only fear I would have, Helena, is that, and people are texting in about that there will be this rush, sort of this, let's get back out, for certain people, not for everybody.
Yeah.
Some people are saying
probably.
that if you want a pint after work, for example, you're not going to bring your children or your grandchildren. Why would you bother? You mentioned the square. What's your thoughts on the map for the square in Dungarvan and how things are developing down there?
Well, look, I'm looking out at it there now. They've tarmac-adam the centre, the main drive through to the square. It should have always really been like that because it couldn't take the traffic. It's a pity that it started when some of the business were opening up. But look, that's it. The council have proposed to cordon off, where the restaurants around the square, do a nice planting thing. And look, it'll be brilliant for me if the weather is fine, because I'll be able to have outdoor seating, as will the other restaurants. And I know it's a bone of contention with other businesses because the parking is going to be taken away. But look, at the way we are now with the coronavirus, we need the outdoor seating because my pub is small and I need to get back up and running and start paying a few bills. But not everyone's going to agree on all these things. But look, for July and August, if we could have it, it'd be brilliant. And if the weather was stayed fine, it'd be a real festival atmosphere in town because the square will be finished at the end of the week. So look, it's onwards and upwards now. We have to be positive about everything.
Okay, Helena, thanks very much. Good to talk to you. And
thanks a million, Damien. Thanks a million.
We'll talk to you soon. Thanks very much. Appreciate it. Bye-bye. Helena Goff there, owner of the local bar in Dungarvan. A couple of texts. What about sanitation? How will they do that? How will it be policed? What a load of rubbish. You can't get COVID if you eat a dinner. Open all pubs. Waterford hasn't had a case in nearly 2 weeks. Don't see anybody wearing masks. People are ignoring the 2 metres already, says this person. Councillor Pat Fitz says, it brings back memories. There was a time after discos when you'd have to cover charge and serve a meal to customers. Although a bit messy, it worked okay. Pat, it was worse than messy. Some of the dinners that were served after hours in some of the nightclubs were horrendous. And when you saw it on the floor as well after people vomited, it was even worse. Damien, when pubs are finished serving food, will they be closing, for example? Some only will do food until 3 o'clock. Again, that's what some publicans will have to work out themselves. Others, countries gone back into lockdown with the virus spreading again. And Ireland wants to knock social distancing back to 1 metre for the hospitality industry. If 2 metres worked and stopped the spread, they shouldn't be bringing it back so quickly, says this texter. We're going to be talking to John Cummins next about Fine Gael. Get your texts and comments coming in 083 333 975. Now, keep your texts and comments coming in 083 333 975. Damien, this is farcical. I can't sit outside a coffee in Tramore with a coffee and see the beautiful sea and keep my distance. They've removed all the seats. I have to sit in my car. It's nuts. Damien, what is a publican in the country going to do if he's only 2 or 3 people in his pub? Throw them out after 90 minutes and close up for the night? Very good question. Damien, why can't the pubs wait to reopen with in 3 weeks' time after that? In other words, they shouldn't be going ahead with this stuff as we develop things now. John Cummins, Senator John Cummins for Fine Gael. Good morning.
Good morning, Damien. How are you?
Good, thank you.
Morning
Good
to your listeners.
It's interesting debate, this whole thing, and we'll see how it plays out. Firstly, we spoke yesterday with Mary Butler regarding Fianna Fáil and how their vote was going to take place. Ballot papers are going out this morning for Fine Gael and for Fianna Fáil and for the Greens. How does the Fine Gael vote happen, just from a procedural point of view?
Well, there'll be a postal ballot also. We do it on an electoral college basis. So the parliamentary party, made up of TDs, senators and MEPs, have a weighting of 50% of the votes. The national executive, which is made up of people from within the party that have been elected from around the country on a regional proportional basis to the National Council have 10%. The general membership of the party have 25% and the councillors have 15%. And my understanding is the ballots will be colour-coded. So the general membership ballots will be a different colour to that of the councillors and the Oireachtas members then.
Have you any idea how many members are there in Fine Gael and Waterford?
In Waterford, we have about 300 members.
300 members, city and county.
And there will each, depending on every area in the country, has 10 special delegates. So those
super members,
super members, but they will be told effectively what way, depending on what way the membership votes in Waterford. So if 50% voted in favour of it and 50% voted against it, well then 5 delegates would go for and 5 delegates would go against. So that process is ongoing at the moment with the constituency secretary. Would
you be confident that the Fine Gael vote's going to go through?
I don't know, to be honest. I've been engaged with members. I know there was an initial ballot of members via online or text message prior to the programme for government being concluded. There's a second one obviously taking place now, and it was about 60-40 in favour of the different combinations of Fine Gael, Fianna Fáil and Independents, or Fine Gael, Fianna Fáil and the Greens, or none. So
not Fine Gael and Sinn Féin.
No, not Sinn Féin.
We'll talk about that in a few minutes.
No problem.
We've a lot to talk about. We don't have an awful lot of time, but want to go through a few different things. The first thing is obviously your relationship with Fianna Fáil. So during the electoral debates, your leader Leo Varadkar had this to say about Micheál Martin.
But listening to Deputy Martin, or Micheál Martin rather, speaking about the enterprise and the enterprise economy and the economy really is quite extraordinary, given Fianna Fáil's record in crashing the economy 9 years ago. Putting Micheál Martin and Fianna Fáil back in charge of our economy would be like asking John Delaney to take over the FAI again in 9 years' time.
John Cummins, what do you have to say to that you have completely and utterly gone against the voters' wishes for change, going back into government with Fianna Fáil and with a man whom your leader has ridiculed in the past, and you have ridiculed Fianna Fáil in the past as well? What have you got to say to people listening this morning that feel that you have broken promises?
Well, certainly we haven't broken promises. Fine Gael is actually the only party that said that we would, or has done exactly as we said we would do before the election and after the election. I think what you just played there was actually the third debate. I think it could have been on RTE rather than TV3 or Virgin Media. What you didn't play is obviously the first debate where Leo Varadkar said that Fine Gael would not do business with Sinn Féin, but if as a last resort, if no alternative government could be formed, that we would talk to Fianna Fáil only as a last resort. And let's face it, Damien, that is exactly what happened. After this election, Fine Gael said we are going into opposition, we're stepping back, we're allowing all the other parties, Sinn Féin, Fianna Fáil, Labour, the Greens, Social Democrats and all of them to form a government. We stepped back for a number of weeks. What happened? Nothing. So only at that point in time did we decide to step back into the fold and step up to the plate for the good of the country.
Even though ye said, and different party members from the very top said, the government, the people have voted for change, and you said, OK, we'll go into opposition, and now you decided to change your minds.
No, what we said was we would go into opposition and we would allow the other parties to form an alternative government. Now, to my knowledge, maybe you know different, Damien, but to my knowledge, no alternative programme for government has been put on the table by Sinn Féin or any of the other parties. And it was only at that point in time that Fine Gael said that we would step into the breach and that we would talk to Fianna Fáil exactly what Leo Varadkar said he would do in the first debate.
What about the 20,000 people that voted first preference for Sinn Féin in this constituency? You didn't get elected.
Unfortunately not, no.
And yet you are part of a triumvirate now that are putting out a programme for government. We'll talk about the aspirational measures of that in a minute. But what about those 20,000 people that voted first preference, wanted to get Fine Gael out, and now you're back in?
Well,
What have you got to say to them this morning?
Well, we live in a representative democracy, and what I would say is 24% of the electorate voted for Sinn Féin. That means that 76% of the electorate didn't vote for Sinn Féin. And Fine Gael, Fianna Fáil and the Greens combined have over 50% of the electorate in terms of first preference votes and over 50% in terms of Dáil seats. And if you cannot run enough candidates and get enough candidates elected to have an overall majority in the Dáil, you must combine with other parties to share government. That is the system of government that we have in this country. It is a very fair and representative democracy that we have in Ireland, and that is the way that the people have voted.
The people didn't vote to get Fine Gael and Fianna Fáil back into government, though. Do you not think there should be another election? For example, your leader said yesterday that if this doesn't go through, there's going to be a crisis. What's wrong with another election?
I'd have absolutely no problem with another election, Damien.
Absolutely. Well, then why did your leader say it's going to be a crisis? Like, he's implying basically, he's putting pressure on people to say...
Well, I wouldn't agree with the Taoiseach in relation to that. I don't think it would be a crisis. If we have to have another election, we have to have another election. That would obviously be very difficult given the current circumstances with COVID-19. And to be fair to the Taoiseach, I'm sure that that's probably what he was referring to.
24/7 and Waterford, OK? We mentioned it yesterday. People were talking about how I grilled Mary Butler about this. And what are you going to ask? When are you going to ask John about 24/7? Again, the Cat Lab is mentioned in the programme for government, the second Cat Lab, right? So that's taken for there. And that was announced last year.
It was.
OK. There's no mention.
Some people didn't believe it.
There's no mention of 24/7. And there's issues I could raise now about all that things, but there's still no mention of 24/7. Have you broken promises and let the Waterford people down again as a party that there's not even a mention of 24/7 in the programme for government? It's not even an aspiration.
Well, it certainly is my aspiration, Damien. And in relation to the programme for government...
It's not in the programme for government, John. It might be your aspiration. No, you're saying that here, but it's not written down.
Well, if you'll allow me to answer the question, everybody knows that in order to have 24/7 care at University Hospital Waterford, one of the main prerequisites is that you must have a second cath lab. Without that, we cannot move to 24/7. I was on your programme a number of weeks ago where I said that there was interviews took place in January for the recruitment of a fourth interventional cardiologist, which will allow the service to expand to 8 to 8, 7 days a week. That is happening, and with the building of the second cath lab, with construction starting in October, we then have to further recruit further interventional cardiologists to expand the service. And everyone says, why can't you just jump to 24/7 now, overnight? Let's face it.
Well, not everyone. We understand that. I think the electorate is not. I think the electorate knows you can't do that, and that argument is fine.
Well, we need to build a service, and that's what we're doing by putting the building blocks in place. We're going to have the second cath lab. We're having the refurbishment of the existing cath lab, $750,000 at the moment, which is going to make sure that it's compatible with the new cath lab that's going to be built at University Hospital. We have the recruitment of a fourth interventional cardiologist, which will go to 7 day a week, providing critical weekend cover. And the only thing then that's needed in order to expand the service further is the recruitment of additional interventional cardiologists. That's it. We're not fighting for another cath lab at that point. We're not fighting for anything else. It's purely the recruitment of further interventional cardiologists. It'll come down to staffing. It'll down to staffing. It'll come down to money. I'll give you very, very plain and very simple, and this is irrefutable. The appointment of additional consultants necessary for your 24/7 has been consistently blocked by the HSE and the DOH since promised in the Higgins report. When? 2013, OK? 2013, you've been in government all along. Yep. This persists despite a written instruction from Varadkar, then Minister for Health, to Director HSE Tony O'Brien in 2016. Correct. So is this government going to deliver on the specific commitment or not? Well, I agree with everything that has been stated in that message that you've just read out for me. It has been of the utmost frustration to my father when he was leader of the Shannon, Paddy Coffey when he was then junior minister, myself and Fine Gael councillors, and not only Fine Gael councillors but the whole membership. I'm somebody that as a councillor went around the entire southeast of the country getting every Fine Gael member, every Fine Gael public representative in the southeast to sign a letter to go on this issue to the Minister for Health and the Taoiseach. Those letters were written. There has been blockages within the Department of Health and within the HSE. I would love.
Are people actively campaigning in other sections?
Well, I know former Minister John Halligan has also spoken about this. I would think so, and there are vested interests, just like there's vested interests.
Where are they coming from? From
just
Cork?
Like there's vested interests in education, there's vested interests in health as well. So,
and the point about this, John, is if you're saying this now,
sorry, Damien,
you should be raising this.
But sorry, to get over that, what we are doing and what has taken a huge amount of work, a huge amount of fighting, is to get the second cath lab. The resistance has been there, as we well know in Waterford and the South East, to providing that second cath lab, because that has been the stumbling block. After that, it is only staffing.
But you were in government. This is like something somebody might say in opposition, John. You were in government. You have control of the HSE. You can actually do something about it.
But we have gotten over all of that. Last September, it was placed in the capital plan, the second cath lab. In November, it went for planning permission. In January, it was granted planning permission. Next month, it will have its tender and contractor selection process started. And in October, it will commence construction. Now, that is progress. But unless we have...
2013.
It was not in the capital plan until last September,
which is a terrible indictment of the Fine Gael government all the way along.
But it has taken a huge amount of time between 2015 and 2018 to get the whole debate moved along because of vested interest that I'm talking. And I don't sit in front of you as somebody that's proud of that record. I absolutely do not. And it's something that I believe you me, every Fine Gael member in Waterford and the South East has been shouting about over the last number of years. We're not insulated from this. I'm just as susceptible to getting a heart attack as anybody else, as is any of my family, and I want to see this delivered.
And same here. That's exactly where I'm coming from. And I've said that to Micheál Martin, I've said that to Leo Varadkar here. We understand that. The problem I have with your argument is that you're implying or blaming vested interests. You were in government. Ye had the Minister for Health. Simon Harris was there, still hasn't come down to talk to us. Ye had the power to do something about it. You've done it, albeit slowly, to get the second cath lab going. So let me ask you specifically, when will Fine Gael deliver 24/7 cardiac care for Waterford and the South East?
Well, firstly, what I would say to you, Damien, is we've now put a programme for government in place that is going to the membership. We don't know if a government is going to be
presume
formed.
It does.
Presuming a government is formed between Fine Gael, Fianna Fáil and the Greens. The second cath lab will be built commencing, as I have said to you now on a number of occasions, starting in October. After that, it is the recruitment of interventional cardiologists that will expand the service. That is something that I will be working with every public representative, regardless of colour, regardless of party, in order to deliver for Waterford and the South East. And I don't think there's any of us that are in elected office that don't have the same priority in that regard. And that is what I will be fighting for.
Are you saying you can't answer the question?
I can't give you a timeline because I don't state things that I can't factually stand over, Damien. So the fact of the matter is the second cath lab is being provided. The service will go to 8 to 8 with the recruitment of an additional cardiologist post, which is going to be in situ shortly. And further to that, then, when we have the next recruitment of an interventional cardiologist, it will be able to go to a further 4 hours. And with the recruitment of the next one after that, it'll be able to go to a further 4 hours.
Did you, as a member of the parliamentary party, ask or try to insist that the 24/7 cardiac issue be put into the programme for government? Like, how can you stand over asking people to vote for this when there's no mention of it? Again, without rehashing the whole argument.
But sorry.
But did you?
But Damien, there is no there is no commitments to specific projects, and I know you're going to go on.
Said that.
I know you're going to go on
right.
and talk about the North Quays now in a moment as well, because what is in there in relation to that is the continuation of the funding of the Urban Regeneration Fund, which funds the North Quays.
More than 18 months? Is it going to go on the special strategic zone?
Yes, absolutely, and there is no time limit on that. And if the commitment on the funding for the Urban Regeneration Fund wasn't in the programme for government, which I insisted it was in terms of the continuation of it, I would have been worried. But it is, and as I said, there is no specific commitments to individual projects right across the country.
That is true.
So what we have here is we have projects. But what there is actually, is a specific mention in relation to the Technological University for the South East, which is critically important for Waterford and the entire region, and the education of our
and as I said yesterday, it would have to be in it because we're the last ones, really.
Well, we're not the last ones.
Close enough to it.
No, there are another 3 other consortia in the country that weren't mentioned, and I'm sure they're probably upset that they weren't mentioned. But there is a specific reference to the Technological University in the South East, and what I would say in relation to that, Damien, I'm very frustrated in relation to that process. That was put in the last programme for government. It was actually mentioned, referenced in the programme for government prior to that. Right. And what was said by many media commentators and other people commentating on this was that we were dragging our heels in relation to passing the legislation for the formation of technological universities, and that was the block to Waterford and Carlow combining. That legislation is now in place for over 2.5 years.
They need to get together.
We have seen 2 other technological universities now formed in this country, and it's about time that Waterford and Carlow got their application in, because at this current moment in time there is no application for a university in the Department of Education.
Senator John Cummins, thank you very much for joining us this morning.
Thanks very much, Damien.
Now we're going to be talking about tourism in a minute, and a very important sector and vital for Waterford and the South East. Some texts coming in. I have to say that's a very strong interview with John Cummins. He's being honest, no sugarcoating, telling us exactly like it is. We may not like how long it takes, but there is a process. And other texts, quite a few texts saying more spoofing from Fine Gael as usual. They promised a full upgrade in 2008, didn't deliver, and this time we are in Waterford not going to be treated as equal. And I'll take more of those texts in a little while. David McCoy, chairperson of Visit Waterford. Good morning.
Good morning, Damien. How are you?
I'm good. Thanks very much for joining us this morning. Again, maintaining social distance in this interview. Just in the next hour, there's going to be the launch of probably one of the most important marketing campaigns ever in Waterford. Talk to me about this.
Yeah, we have a big campaign starting to promote tourism in the city and county. We've been working on this for the last month, and it's really an opportunity for us in Waterford to promote the destination from city to county nationally. We're looking at TV, radio, press from the end of this month to the end of September. So we kick off with a digital and social campaign, promoting on YouTube and all the key channels, with national TV advertising, print and radio, as I said. And our key focus really is to showcase Waterford as a destination from the city to Dunmore East to Tramore to Dungarvan. Every aspect of what the city has to offer in terms of tourism, the museums, the soft adventure, the walking, the greenway, the food, the entertainment, everything we have that's a key strength in Waterford. Basically to tell the nation that we're open for you to enjoy a vacation this summer. In addition to that, just in relation to in our own city and county, to take an opportunity to take day trips and enjoy the key things that you love about Waterford with your family and friends.
We'll talk about that positive message in a minute. I want to ask you the Killjoy message. You're doing this now in June. Is it not a bit late? Should you not have done this or had this ready to go 3 or 4 weeks ago?
Well, we had a lot of thought about actually the timing of it, and it's a valid question. Our train of thought in this campaign, we're looking out as far as the end of October. We look at it, naturally speaking, how people take holidays is going to change a little bit because of the COVID. So we see the holiday schedule running through to the end of October, with people taking more vacations in September than they normally would because they have been either not able to take
the
vacation.
schools won't be back. Don't be saying that. No, they will be back.
No, in terms of, you've got, listen, that families are one thing. You've got empty nesters, you've got teens and so forth. There's different types of family makeup.
Of course.
But our train of thought is we see an opportunity between weekend breaks, day trips, staycations right till the end of October. And that's really our train of thought, that the campaign would give us an opportunity to push out that far. In addition to that, there's been a little bit of ambiguity in terms of how enterprises would operate once they open. And the last couple of weeks, we've got closer to terms of that's going to happen. So we didn't want to push the message out too soon. But in terms of maximising the money, we're thinking as far as October rather than the end of August.
Very important message. And it must when the devil vomits in your kettle, because the foreign tourist market is gone. For this summer, it's gone. And you are in Waterford, Crystal. You know better than anybody how that's going to affect your business and how it's affecting your business. So this is so important to get that message out there that Waterford is open. The hotels will be open. All the measures will be in place. The pubs will be there. We heard pubs like Helena down in Dungarvan. There'll be such a positive thing there to do it, because we have to get a certain percentage of that tourism market into Waterford and the South East to survive.
Absolutely, and I think what's unique. There's a lot of things that we have in Waterford. Like our product has got so strong, and it's probably our biggest campaign in a long time, where we've gone out nationally to tell people the diversity of what we have to offer.
How much will you be spending on it, by the way?
We're going to spend roughly about 115,000 on it. That's in terms of enterprises, direct marketing, and so forth.
And where is that money coming from?
It's a combination of the City Council and members of Visit Waterford. We basically try to maximise our spend in terms of this campaign and all the other initiatives we're all doing to drive traffic, to make them and really coordinate a campaign. So it'll be money well spent. And our thought process too, a lot of the stuff we've created here is going to feed into international tourism for next year, because Tourism Ireland have their first digital MEHL, which is a kind of getting all the partners that actually sell Waterford and Ireland together digitally for campaigns in 2021. So we see this feeding into promoting Waterford internationally. So it's kind of the first step of us getting tourism back up and running in Waterford. The domestic market, with the campaign then rolling into the international markets with Tourism Ireland.
Look forward to seeing it. It's very exciting. It really is. And I hope it works. And I hope it gets, because jobs are dependent on it. This is like, people talk about marketing campaigns as if it's something up in the sky and it's nothing to do with them. This is jobs on the ground. This is what this means. This is pubs opening in rural areas going to be spin-off. This is so, so important. And it's so important for Waterford people and people that are related to tell their friends, tell their families to come down, to come here.
There's never been more important time, because collectively we're all winners in this. In terms of people employed directly, those indirectly because of your working and you're spending your money locally, but also too that we sustain a really strong product, that when we actually get the international markets back, those businesses that have worked the domestic market, that people have used the product, sustained their business, they're in a strong position to take advantage when the international market does come back. Because we have to look at, like, Waterford's always competed well, both domestically and internationally. So this is a time issue. This is part of the recovery. And I think we're in a strong position to take advantage of it. We have a really strong product, and this is the first big initiative we're actually telling the country we're open for business, and we have some amazing things for you and your family to do safely, and for all the local people who admire their county, to celebrate it, to communicate it to your family and friends, and when you're thinking of your days out and so forth. If you're in Dungarvan, come into the city. If you're in the city, go to Dungarvan. Basically work together to maximise Waterford's opportunity to drive tourism and give us our best chance for the rest of the year.
Very well said, David. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Damon.
The very best of luck with it. We'll help promote it as much as we can, and if there's any initiatives that we can focus on, we certainly will, because it's great. It's very positive and it's very uplifting, and again, it's essential. It's so important to do it. So the best of luck to you and everybody on the team.
That's great, Damon. Thanks for your help today. Cheers.
Now, a lot of text coming in. It is blatant arrogance of Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael to ignore the mandate that Sinn Féin got, to refuse to even speak to the party that got such a mandate. Damien, a lot of people critical of what Fine Gael has stood for in the past and what they've been saying. Some text coming in. John Cummins has expressed his determination to secure cardiovascular needs, and I'm sure with a guy like that, his voice will be projected. Quite a number of people mentioning Cork and the fact that Cork is going to have a very strong political representation, more than likely, in the next government if this goes through, and the fact that if there's vested interest down in Cork stopping different matters, including 24/7, I fear for the different aspects of this county, says Paul. We're going to talk now about farming just for a few minutes, a very, very important matter. Good morning, Edmund Phelan.
Good morning, Damien.
Edmund, thanks very much for joining us. I know we couldn't talk to you yesterday with time pressures. You're president of the ICSA, and you're also a farmer in Fenner. How are you, by the way, and how have things been going over the last 3 or 4 months?
Health is very good, thank you. I suppose that's one good thing about farming. We are out in the fresh air. We don't meet too many people. We're sort of used to isolation, so that's nothing new to us. But you do miss certain aspects, we say, like marts and so on, that were closed for so long, It was maybe a lot of people's only social outlet over the last number of years,
Yeah. In terms of marts, I was talking to Richie, who is the chairperson, manager of the mart in New Ross, and there was some pictures there on the live mart feed, an app that I was watching on Saturday. It shows how exciting a life I have. No, a lad alerted me to it, and there was some issues there regarding New Ross mart. And now Richie, fair play to him, he didn't want to come on air, but he did say it was a very simple thing that part of the computer system went down at one stage and they had to basically fix it, and when they kind of turned around, the farmers were all together on that and they sorted it out. How are marts imposing social distancing?
Well, it's hard to really tell yet. They're really only up and running, we say, with the last week. It's great to have them back, number one. I know there is online selling and people, using different online platforms, and that's fine, but you need a mart to, we say, set a price. I've gone to a couple of marts myself. It's not satisfactory from the point of view that they can only let a very limited number of buyers in, and if you're not there at the right time, you don't get in. And from that point of view, it's not working. I did see a lot of department and I think HSE staff there, and that's fine, to look after health and safety, which is very important. But if you compare it to going into Tesco or SuperValu, there's nobody there watching you to the same extent. Now, the good things about it is, you sign in, which is very important, we say, for contact tracing if there is a problem down the road. But I do think if people can't get into the sales ring, they're going to congregate outside, which defeats the purpose. It's much easier. I think if they could be a few more in the sales room, it would be better.
Yeah, it does defeat. What's your reaction to the programme for government? Now, I know a lot of farmers are very concerned about the so-called green proposals regarding a proposed ban on live exports and cuts to national herd, but these haven't made it into the programme for government. So was there a lot of people kind of crying wolf?
Well, I don't think they were crying wolf, but I think, I have been we say, talking to the Greens for the last year or so or two, and just trying to, we say, talk them down from some of the more extreme aspects. We say,
you make it sound like they're somebody with an agenda. They would say they've no agenda whatsoever. They want to make farming better, huh?
Yes, I agree totally. But I mean, a lot of it mightn't have been, we say, country orientated, But I think that they will make a valuable contribution. And I'll tell you why. I mean, for example, we say in the sheep trade, I mentioned to them about wool, which is a fantastic product, and it's now a liability. It costs more to shear a sheep than the wool is worth, and at times you can't even give it away. And it's in the programme for government that they're actually going to try and look at new uses for it in insulation and whatever. That's just a minor thing. The live exports wasn't going to be a huge problem for us if they were banned. But I do think that they realise that they have to be there as a balance to the factories.
So are you...
If we don't do that, we get nothing for the cattle.
Yeah, are you saying, Edmund, that a lot of lobbying that was done by farm organisations over the last 12 months in particular has come to fruition now, that you've watered down a lot of the Green Party proposals successfully?
Yes, successfully. And I think we did find an open door there, in fairness. I mean, it's a learning curve for us all, because I would have certain, ideas myself. I think we've gone too far in expansion in agriculture. So we say, for example, when I was young, a good herd was 20 cows. We say in the last 20 years, 80 cows is a great herd. Now people need to have 200 and 300 cows. I mean, what are they at? They're not making any more money. All they're doing is driving down the price of food and working harder to stand still. So I think it's time to call halt to this unbridled expansion.
Yeah, and the Greens and I know a lot of farmers talk about the front line of environmental protection, and they are very much in favour of, and it's their interest to make sure that climate change. But are you sort of saying to me, Edmund, that there's kind of a disparity there between what some farmers think and what the climate change argument is? Like, are you agreeing? Do you agree that climate change is a major issue?
I do agree climate change is a major issue, but I don't agree that agriculture is the main driver of it. Of course, there are certain areas where we can improve on. Like, as I say, this unbridled expansion where we're using maybe too much chemicals. That's something I would like to have looked at. But at the same time, there's no point in, we say, cutting production here for the sake of it, and then cutting down our rainforest in South America to bring the beef across the ocean. That's 3 times as bad. Yeah,
that is. So would you be encouraging anybody who's listening to this programme who's a member of Fianna Fáil, Fine Gael or the Greens to vote in favour of this deal as the head of the Irish Cattle and Sheep Farmers Association?
Yes, I would. I think there's a lot of good things in the deal. Other things which we've been arguing for a long time. We say to encourage the transfer to younger farmers. That's there. There's things on horticulture. We import an awful lot of our vegetables from Spain. Why do we do that? Because apparently they can be produced cheaper out there for one reason or another. But to me, that just doesn't make sense. They can be grown perfectly well here, so why not do it?
Edmund, thanks very much for joining us this morning.
Okay, thanks very much, Jamie.
Thank you very much, appreciate it. Edmund Phelan there, President of the ICSA and a farmer in Fenner. Stay with us, we've a lot more coming up. We're going to be talking to Anne Casson from Nationwide. We also have Alan Reynolds talking to us about the ins and outs of Waterford FC.